We've got snowballs, harballs, and these bowls right here for you.
This is the worst.
Mutazita Banakis, welcome into the worst fantasy show. I am your host with the least, Jack Lucene, coming in a day late and a dollar short on a Friday afternoon. Had some things going on, school appointments and the whatnot yesterday, so we had to push today's show to Friday, the Thursday show normally to Friday. Little update, upkeeping before we get into things. Next week is Thanksgiving for you Americans, which is going to drastically change the NFL schedule. My Thanksgiving passed like a month ago. So I already had Canadian Thanksgiving. But that means that next week's show is also not going to be on Thursday, and we are going to have a special guest. Shout out to my guy, Dustin Ludke. He was with us for the Thanksgiving show last year. He will be once again rejoining us for the Thanksgiving show this year. So we're going to have a special early Wednesday time. We're going to go live at 6 p.m. next Wednesday. So the Thursday show will not be on Thursday next week. It will be on Wednesday to help you get prepared for all the Thanksgiving games. But we are in week 12. There are a bunch of teams on bye weeks. We are coming off of the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game. Obviously, Cleveland won. If you're not a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you may have been surprised by that. I was 100% expecting it. This is exactly the type of game that we lose. A game against a team with a losing record, especially a divisional rival, and especially if we're at home and have a good record. So we fall to 8-3, matters not. We're going to make the playoffs, it's just a matter of seeding, and we're not making it to the Super Bowl. So it really is not a big deal to me that we lost. But hey, shout out to Cleveland. You know, they have something to sink their teeth into for this season. Excuse me. On bye weeks, Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, Saints, Jets. Oh my. All of your favorite fantasy players are going to be on a bye week. We are going to be in desperate need of some matchup decisions, some start-sit decisions. Even as far as the streamers, I didn't just stop at this week. The streaming section will be doubling up, not just this week, but also the next couple of weeks, because weeks 12, 13, 14 for most of us is going to be our last 3 weeks of the fantasy regular season. This is what is going to determine if you are in or out of your fantasy playoffs or your seeding, getting your team ready for the playoffs. So I kind of went a little deeper on the streamers this week. But without further ado, let's get into the matchups. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Carolina Panthers. This is a 42.5-point over-under. Not much here. I am actively avoiding any Carolina Panthers offensive players. The Chiefs defense, one of the best in the entire NFL. I'm pretty sure they are one of the hardest defenses across the board for running back, quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, doesn't matter. So basically, there is not a Carolina Panther that I would start outside of Chuba Hubbard because I have to, because of bye weeks. Otherwise, on the Chiefs side, it's been announced officially now, Isaac Guerendo, or why the hell did I say Isaac Guerendo? Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know where my mind's at. Isaiah Pacheco is not going to be active or playing this week, which is what I had expected. I had been taking Kareem Hunt in the last rounds of my best ball drafts. I thought he was ridiculously priced. The matchup is insane against the Panthers. They're one of the best, if not the best, matchup for fantasy running backs. So Kareem Hunt is definitely still a start. I would start him over Chuba Hubbard, who we just talked about on the other side, who's the only guy I would want to start for the Panthers. It has not been great for Mahomes, but you start him here. He's going to get you at least 15 fantasy points, I guess, especially in a plus matchup. I think Travis Kelce is viable, DeAndre Hopkins. You can even take the deep shot on Xavier Worthy because this is definitely going to be a week where we're looking for bodies. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears, 39.5-point over under here. I think this could be a better game than we're expecting because, you look at it on the surface, these are actually two good defenses, divisional matchup, only a 39.5-point over under. With Shane Waldron already gone, I'm more encouraged by what I've seen out of the Chicago Bears already, just utilizing Caleb Williams' running ability. The Vikings have been kind of teetering. It feels like their offense has really kind of struggled. I think this could be a good matchup where we get maybe, again, I think it hits the over. So I'm starting Justin Jefferson for sure. Obviously, you start your studs. I think you start Aaron Jones. The Bears are stronger against the pass than they are against the run. So I think Aaron Jones, even though it's been a bit of a struggle, I think you still start him here, especially with, again, the mass bye weeks. You're going to be looking for bodies. So Jefferson and Jones are still in. I think Sam Darnold even in Superflex or depending on your quarterback situation. I don't hate it. On the Bears side, I think this is one of the few weeks where you can be a little more enthused about Caleb Williams. And I've even taken the step of, just in case, I threw together a Caleb Williams, DJ Moore stack in best ball. I think, I have lots of DJ Moore. Like, he's in probably over 50% of my redraft leagues. I have a ton of them in best ball. And I've been very discouraged this entire season, for the most part, by DJ Moore. But I think he has been too. And I really do blame Shane Waldron because already you look at the game this was like his second best game that he had, the first game without Waldron. So, I think JSN's reaction in the offseason during the interview is very telling. So I think you can start DJ Moore, Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift. And I even, if you're desperate, would take the dart throw on Cole Kmet, who had 3 for 45 and was kind of a dead asset for some reason in Waldron's system. But if he continues to get some usage, and especially if he can usurp Keenan Allen truly as like the third target, because I think Keenan Allen, older player, basically on a 1-year deal, may not even be there next year. I think they're wanting to integrate Rome and Cole and DJ Moore because that's their future. And that's the hope here. And especially, again, just you're looking for bodies. Shout out Raw Boy. I do see your question in the comments. I'm going to just, for the sake of the show, in terms of like the brevity, I'm just going to keep all questions until the end of the matchups, and I'll hit them before the streamers. All right. So if you guys are watching out there and you have any questions, feel free to drop them in, and I'll just hit them all one after another right before the streamers. Okay, the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans, 41.5-point over under here. I actually think this is another sneaky. Will Levis, for as bad as he's been, has been throwing the ball still downfield. This guy is unflappable in terms of no matter how bad he sucks, he's still going to whip it down the field, it seems like. So I think you can start Calvin Ridley. Tyjae Spears is out with a concussion. So I think you still start Tony Pollard, even though it's a little bit of a tough matchup. And again, in a desperation spot, you can start Will Levis. Like if you're actively, I've seen a lot of people picking up Tommy DeVito. And if you have, Will Levis that is kicking around on your roster, you're trying to start Tommy DeVito, I would start Will Levis instead. But it's really, you're limiting yourself here to Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard. On the Texans side, it's Joe Mixon. It's Nico Collins. I think with Collins back now, CJ Stroud is a better start, but I still would temper my expectations. And I don't really want to mess with like the tertiary options. You're talking about Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz. Again, fill-ins for bodies. I get it with what's going on this week with all the bye weeks and injuries and everything going on, but I'm trying to get the main pieces of this game and not much else. The Detroit Lions at the Indianapolis Colts, 50.5-point over-under. Now, this is a game that I like. Anthony Richardson seems to have come back to life. This is not a great matchup, but the Lions are definitely weaker on the road. Their home road splits are real. I think this is the game where Indianapolis is going to be able to compete, so I actually like Anthony Richardson. I was wrong last week about Josh Downs. I think Josh Downs, regardless of which quarterback is playing, he's the one guy that is kind of startable no matter what. Michael Pittman is dead to me. Jonathan Taylor, this is not a good matchup, but you're going to have to start him. Last week sucked. It was 24 for basically 50 yards and no touchdowns. That is still a possibility, but that is also still a decent enough floor that I'm starting him over probably 80% of running backs. So Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, Anthony Richardson are startable unless you have amazing options instead of them. And for the Detroit Lions, everybody's in for me. Gibbs, Montgomery, Goff, even though it's a road matchup, he's been kind of wheeling and dealing a little better lately. I think Jameson Williams is worth a dart throw here. And if Sam Laporta plays, just, the nature of tight ends, I would play him. The New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. We got 46-point over-under. That feels high. The way that these teams have been playing, in particular the Miami Dolphins, feels like they don't have the crazy rocket ceiling that we were all expecting and hoping for from last season. Jalen Waddle was, by all rights, a bust last week and saved it with like a 1-yard touchdown. I think I like Devon Achane because just he is getting the work of a starting running back and a starting wide receiver. So he's in no matter what. I think you still start Tyreek Hill. I think you can start Tua. Jonnu Smith has emerged as the tight end option. You can start him. But I would not start Jalen Waddle unless I absolutely had to. Like I've got some leagues where 5-6 bench spots, it's just all 5-6 bye weeks. If that's the case and Jalen Waddle's in your starting lineup, I get it. But if you have another option, Jameson Williams, for example, I would actively be starting over Jalen Waddle. On the Patriots side, I like Drake May and Ramondre Stevenson. I am not playing wide receiver roulette with this Patriots wide receiver crew. It could be Pop Douglas. It could be the kid they drafted that I'm forgetting his name now. I want to say Jacoby Myers, but it's not. It's Jalen Polk. It could be Kayshon Boutte. The Bourne identity is still kicking around there. It's just I'm not messing with that. Hunter Henry, this is a positive matchup for him. So you just stick to the main guns of Drake May, Hunter Henry, and Ramondre and move on. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New York Giants, 41.5-point over-under. Heavily targeting Tampa Bay. I think that's a very obvious matchup that everybody is targeting on defense, on offense. Get in on Tampa Bay against Tommy DeVito-led New York Giants. I like Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I would start both of them. I like Baker Mayfield. I'm assuming Mike Evans is going to play, and if he does, even if it's on limited snaps, I'm playing him because he only needs 1 or 2 big plays. And I really like Cade Otton still. And I feel like the fantasy community is a little bit of an echo chamber, and you'll get talking points that are common across every platform. And when I say platform, I mean show. Like, if you listen to fantasy footballers, earlier today I was listening to Pete Overzet and the Badge Bros. Like, just again, certain terms and sayings, they're just obvious, right? And so one of those things is that Cade Otton is not necessarily affected by Mike Evans' return because they have different roles in the offense. Cade Otton represents more of what Chris Godwin was doing, who is still out for the year. So Mike Evans, obviously more of an outside threat, with Cade Otton still having all that intermediary role, very much still to himself. So I don't think Evans affects him. I actually think it improves because, again, now you've got to account for Mike Evans long and Cade Otton short and pick your poison. So start Cade Otton, start Mike Evans, start Bucky Irving, start Rachaad White, start Baker Mayfield. That's juice up on Tampa Bay Buccaneers. On the Giants side, Tyrone Tracy. I'm not even in Superflex am I starting Tommy DeVito. Unless he is the only quarterback that I have, and I have to put him in my quarterback spot just because you take what you're going to get. But there's virtually no actual way. I did one ticket for shits and giggles where I took Tommy DeVito as my best ball quarterback. And I said that if by some miracle this wins, I'll donate 10% of the winnings to Fantasy Cares, which would be $1,000. So, let's all root for Tommy DeVito for that, but I don't think that that's coming through. I've made my own donations to Fantasy Cares, so it's fine. I don't even think Malik Neighbors is going to be available for this game because he showed up late. All of a sudden on the practice, he's not practicing now. I think it was today that he popped up. So if he's not available, I don't even know if I really want Tyrone Tracy because this is a tougher run defense than people think. But again, you're going to be in a situation where you're probably not going to be able to sub him out. Like, if Malik Neighbors is not available and it's Tommy DeVito and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, coming to town, I think that's a situation where, like, I have a league where I could start Tyrone Tracy in the flex or DJ Moore. I might switch it to DJ Moore if all of that is going against Tyrone Tracy. But he's been really good and he can get it done through the air. So, again, I'm not just blindly benching him, but I'm definitely tempering my expectations. Speaking of tempered expectations, the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders, 45-point over-under. Cooper Rush, he's throwing it a lot. He's got no run game. I wouldn't mess around with these. These running backs are officially like a situation where nobody is useful. I mean, you can say Rico Dowdle and take the shot for like really gross volume again if you need a warm body to fill in. But I think this is CeeDee Lamb and Cooper Rush. And I know a lot of people are talking about Schoonmaker because Ferguson's going to be out. And again, if you're desperate for a tight end, but I would start Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. There's other guys I would take over Schoonmaker. So unless you're in that very desperate situation of having your only tight end on bye and you just need a body, okay, but I wouldn't actively be pursuing him over any of those other streaming assets. On the Commanders side, this is where you're firing up. I think Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler can both eat in this matchup. I think Terry McLaurin has a positive matchup here. I think he's still starting Zach Ertz here. And obviously, Jaden Daniels, you're going to fire him up against a bad Dallas Cowboys defense. Getting into the afternoon 4 o'clock games, the Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a 41-point over-under. I think this game has sneaky value. Obviously, you look at Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton. I think those are both good startable assets. Javonte Williams, if you're in a desperate pinch. And on the Vegas side, I like Jacoby Myers still. Obviously, Brock Bowers. They have no option but to play Minshew. And, we just got huge news at the most perfect time. I wish oh man, I don't have I'm so professional. I've got no breaking news drop. Here, let's use this.
Drop that, yeet, skirt that, yeet, pop that, yeet, hey.
So I would start Minshew in a desperate pinch because Minshew, Myers, and that Bowers and move on. And we're moving on right into the breaking news. The San Francisco 49ers at the Green Bay Packers, 47.5-point over under. That line is definitely going to change because it has just come through on the wire. Brock Purdy-licious. Brock Purdy is out for week 12. How will this affect George Kittle? How will this affect Deebo Samuel? How will this affect Jawan Jennings? This is massive. Jawan Jennings has been one of the most popular best ball late clicks. I've seen him on plenty of teams. I have him on plenty of teams. In drafters, I'm going to have to go sub him out. I'm not going to be able to do that on Underdog. That's going to screw up some of my Underdog portfolio. Oh, my. So Brock Purdy, major news, out for week 12 against the Green Bay Packers. So, do you still start Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey? Who's even the backup? Oh my, I don't even know who's the backup for Brock Purdy. I'm going to look it up right now. This is great podcasting, but I have to know. The audience has to know. Brock Purdy-licious. I'm going to pull up the team. Oh, Josh Dobbs. So we get the Josh Dobbs experience. So, wow. Okay. This changes so many things. Okay. So Josh Dobbs starting for, I got to go get him in some Superflex leagues. Oh my. Okay. I'm literally trying to make, now I'm going to be trying to make ads at the same time as I'm trying to do the show. Why can I not even find him? There you are. Okay, Josh Dobbs. Boom, boom, boom. I was going to have to start Bryce Young this week. I will definitely be flipping that. Wow, that is massive, massive news. Okay, so sorry. I'm just trailing right off here. So I would start Josh Dobbs. If you were in a situation like I was where you're going to have to start Bryce Young in a Superflex, I would sub in Josh Dobbs. And then I would limit myself to Kittle. I think Jawan Jennings might still be that primary wide receiver, and it scares me a lot for Deebo, but maybe that flips. I think you take your bet on which wide receiver you like, but don't start both. If that makes sense. If you feel like it's Deebo, play Deebo, or if you just have no other choice, but definitely understand that Dobbs is not going to be throwing as much. So we might see more running from the quarterback. We are going to maybe see a little less from McCaffrey on the ground. Wow, is this going to change everything? And then for the Green Bay Packers, I mean, Jordan Love is the sum of all parts and a great start, and an even better one now that he has, I think a path to winning this game. Oh, man. Okay, so I would start Love, Jacobs, Reed. I'm going to ignore all the other options, Kraft and Wicks and Smelton and Dobbs and all these other guys. Christian Watson is the one just burned me too many times. So, wow, that changes everything. Okay, the Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks. This was also a 47.5-point over-under. I think this is a game that sets up as a little bit of a shootout, even though it's a divisional matchup. And the Cardinals' defense has been better as of late, and the Seahawks' defense is usually better at home. I do think that this is a potential shootout here. So I like Kyler, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, James Conner. And on the Seahawks side, I like JSN a lot this week. I've been sneaking JSN into my best ball lineups. Maybe this is also hedging against my bet with Hoove. But I think I like JSN. I like DK Metcalf. I even like Geno. And I've been taking a lot of Kembone Walker, a lot more than I usually do. So I like him. Sunday night football. Philadelphia Eagles at the Los Angeles Rams, 48.5-point over under. Devonta Smith is actually trending to be out now. So you start your familiar faces here. Obviously, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, and Dallas Goedert. As mid as he is, he's actually been kind of decent when he has played, and especially when Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown misses. So if Smith is out, Goddard's in. So you start those guys. For the Rams, Kupp, Puka, Kyren, Stafford. Cha-ching! That was a really bad imitation of a typewriter. Baltimore Ravens at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Hardball Monday Night Football game, 15.5-point over under. I like the receiving options in this game. I like Justin Herbert. I like Quentin Johnston. I like Ladd McConkey. I even like the deep throw if you need the spot start. Josh Palmer is out there. I like Will Dissly even. I like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Bus in a double revenge game here. But I would much prefer Dobbins. I think Gus Bus is the one where it's like you are really banking on a touchdown or nothing, right? So that one is, again, warm body off the waiver wire right into, hoping to vulture a touchdown. Gus Bus. On the Ravens side, again, familiar faces. We're starting Lamar, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. I also think this presents as a potential Isaiah Likely game. I know he's been very inconsistent, but last week had the 4 for 75. And generally in matchups where Lamar has to get the ball out of his hands early, so Chargers and next week we'll talk about two tougher matchup. I think that's where Likely tends to pop up more. And so I think he's worth, again, a deep dart throw if you really need it. But then otherwise, obviously you're starting Derrick Henry, and that's it. All right, let's get into some of these questions. We got 2 in the chat. My guy Raw Boy, what's up? Need 3: Jacobs, JSN, Evans, Eckler, Tracy Jr. Okay, so in this situation, I like Josh Jacobs because I think the Packers, especially now that they're going to be facing Josh Dobbs, win that match. And so Jacobs should have a good day. I like JSN because, again, we talked about the potential shootout with the Cardinals, and he's just been getting better as of late. And if he plays, I take the shot on Mike Evans for the ceiling. If Mike Evans is out, I'm going to take Austin Eckler in the matchup because I'm actually scared for my boy Tyrone Tracy, who, look, I was the Tyrone Tracy truther before it was cool. I talked about him when I was doing my rookie top 10 running back show, and I have just shit tons of them in best ball. And I have a lot of them in my redraft stuff even because I was pretty early when I saw them starting to pivot towards him. I picked him up off waivers in a lot of leagues. And then Kenny 49ers. What's up? Who are you sitting? Neighbors, Evans, Kyren. Well, the decision should be made for you because I think Neighbors might not play. And then he said, or DK PPR for me too. Tampa could be tough since they're making push to win that division. Yeah. I mean, again, so monitor closely because it's not guaranteed that Mike Evans is going to play. We saw Nico Collins pull this shit on us where he was active. He's going to come back. And then all of a sudden, actually. And, if it was a hamstring thing, so he could tweak it at any time, first play, just like we saw last time. So if he goes through warm-ups and he doesn't feel 100%, he might decide fuck off. So, I would monitor Evans closely. Neighbors too, again, popped up late on injury reports now. So if Neighbors is out, the decision is made for you, where you're going to obviously play Evans and Kyren. And then if Evans isn't active or is, even saying like limited snap count, I would play DK over Mike Evans. That's one of the rare exceptions of like, you're going to play a stud over a stud and a really great matchup also, by the way. And he's coming off, he had 7 receptions last week. Like DK Metcalf is one of the few people I would play above Mike Evans. on a limited snap count, even if Mike Evans was fully healthy, you could argue DK Metcalf still. So if that's the situation, like, again, just keep an eye on Evans and Neighbors. Neighbors for me is the sit because I just think they're going to get smoked. So I think Neighbors, and especially it's Tommy DeVito now. So I think that one is, I'm out on that. I think, yeah, Evans maybe, but I like DK and Kyron, to be honest. My guy Frizzle, yo, what up? What up? No, thank you for stopping by, my man. You guys always say thanks for the answers. I'm like way overthinking this shit. I just appreciate you guys coming by. Starting Slayton this week since Devonta's out. How screwed am I? You are very screwed, my man. If Slayton stands for Darius Slayton, you are totally fucked. But hey, you hope that he gets the long touchdown or the random big week. It's possible. Fantasy football is a fickle beast, so it's never impossible. But if you're asking how likely, not that likely. I'll be honest with you. I appreciate you though. Yeah, DK had a big week last week without the touchdown even, and then Neighbors is just a tough start across the board. All right, well, we got a lot of tough starts. We got bye weeks, we got injuries, and we only got 3 weeks left of fantasy football before the playoffs. So let us get into some all important streamers for the next couple of weeks.
Don't tell me. We're about to go over a huge waterfall.
Yep.
Sharp rocks at the bottom?
Most likely.
Bring it on.
So we mentioned it at the top of the show, but let us recap again. This week on bye, the Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Saints, and the Jets. Lots of playoff potential on the bench this week. Next week, Thanksgiving. No bye weeks. There's the 3 Thursday night football games. Again, I said it at the top of the show, but just a reminder, the Thursday night show that I normally do will be on Wednesday next week at 6 p.m. So we can cover those Thanksgiving games and the entire slate to make sure you guys are all prepped for week 13. But then we get to week 14, and it's another bye-apocalypse. Ravens, Broncos, Texans, Colts, Patriots, Commanders. Again, Ravens, Broncos, Texans. Those are teams we are all leaning on. The Commanders also, and even assets from the Colts and Patriots will be unavailable. That is crucial to know because obviously everyone's dealing with this week already, and it's kind of caught up on us. But next week, Thanksgiving, I just mentioned there's going to be no bye weeks. That means you are going to have your best players available to you, which means that all of your waiver ads, if you're already heading into the playoffs, or if you need these last 2 wins, like set your best lineup and then make sure that your bench, anybody you don't need for these next couple of weeks, they're gone. And you don't want to hold a guy because this guy has a great week 16, 17 schedule. You got to make it to fucking week 16, 17. So unless, you're undefeated and you're just now tinkering, okay, I get it. But a lot more teams, and I've seen a lot more parity this year because of all the injuries and the weird play. I feel like way more teams are neck and neck, and I would not get cocky. I'm looking at my guy, shout out my guy, Matt Yeager. He is in second place in my big money league right now. He is 7-4. I'm 6-5. Like, I'm in 4th and I'm 6-5. 1 fucking win out of his spot. And I have more points for and more points against. So it has been very much that kind of season. I would not rest on your laurels. This is the time now and next week to get ahead of your league mates. So again, this week, we're going to be taking advantage of people dropping players that they should not, especially when we're looking at defenses and kickers. Next week, again, we're going to be maximizing our lineup for the following week when, again, those crazy bye weeks are going to get hit. We can see, I've got bye weeks here that I need to fill, and I've got way more options this week than if I'm scraggling for them on the week 14 waiver wire when that rolls through on Wednesday morning. So let's start with some quarterback options. And some of these are also going to be trade for candidates because, again, not only is it week 12 and we've got all these teams going on by, but for a lot of leagues, this is the trade deadline as well. I know some leagues had it last week. I feel like a lot more leagues have adjusted to the 17-week schedule with the extra game. And so I know in a lot of my leagues, the week trade deadline is this week. So some of these are also kind of low-level trade targets as well as waivers that, maybe in your super competitive ultra experts league, they're not there, but in your basic standard home league 10-man, they might be. Okay. All right. Quarterbacks. Cooper Rush, I think, and you can stash Trey Lance depending on how deep your league is, but I'm looking at the schedule. I do not want this week. Obviously, on the road against Washington, Washington's been a hell of a defense. That one scares me. But then they get the Giants and Cincinnati for week 13 and 14. And that week 14 spot start for Cincinnati especially. You're in a single quarterback league. You have Lamar Jackson and Cooper Rush is hanging out on waivers. I would throw him on your bench because you'll be able to spot start Cooper Rush in that week 14 bye in a positive matchup. Again, it's a home matchup against the Bengals. Bengals put up points. The defense lets you put up points. That's where you got to be looking. And then even if you're in a super flex, like his week 15 matchup, now you're getting into the actual playoffs, is at Carolina. So you're actually getting even an extra playoff matchup potentially out of it. But that little 3-game stretch, New York Giants, Cincinnati, both at home, and then on the road against Carolina, Cooper Rush can do some damage in those matchups. Even if it was Trey Lance, like, again, in a super flex. Kind of more of a low-level trade target, I'm looking at Derek Carr. You look at weeks 13, 14, he gets the Rams and the Giants. And what I really like about Derek Carr, if you manage to hold on to him long enough, is he does get a revenge game against the Vegas Raiders in week 17. He's petty enough that I think that'll matter to him and he'll put up a good game. And it would be really hilarious to see Derek Carr on some championship winning fantasy teams. And then another guy that I like a lot, and again, in single quarterbacks, he might even just be on your waivers because I know I picked him up off waivers personally. Drake May obviously gets Miami, but then next week, Indianapolis, and then he has the week 14 bye. So that's where it's like, some of these guys you can kind of pair together. Like if you have Derek Carr, for example, who is on a bye this week, right? And you pick up Drake May, you play Drake May, and then, you decide next week whose matchup you like better between Derek Carr and Drake May. To me, they're kind of equal, so I'd go with the matchup. And then week 14 rolls around, you just drop Drake May, and you back on Derek Carr. So those are kind of situations where you can just use a guy for a couple of weeks and then open up a waiver spot to help yourself, whether that's on defense, kicker, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last guy I was looking at here was Will Levis, which I think is hilarious. Also Mason Rudolph as a stash because he was the obvious backup. But you look at the week 14 home against Jacksonville. That is a great matchup. So again, you have Bo Nix, you have Lamar Jackson, you have CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels. They all have week 14 buys. You need to be prepared for that. Will Levis is the guy that could be hanging around on waivers or is definitely easily attainable via trade. Nobody gives a shit about Will Levis, even in a super flex. So again, you look at, unless it's like, oh, he's my only quarterback because of injuries and yada, yada. But for the most part, again, these are attainable names, whether by low-level trade or they're just hanging out on waivers. So again, just to repeat, Cooper Rush, a.k.a. Dallas quarterback, Derek Carr, a.k.a. Saints quarterback, Drake May, and then Will Levis or Mason Rudolph if it came to that. For the running backs, Everybody and their grandmother's been talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense as a great streaming option for the next 2 weeks. The same thing that makes them a great streaming option for the defense makes them a great streaming option for the running backs. So again, Rachaad White and Bucky Irving are going to be largely owned. These are low-level trade targets that I've been trying to acquire in a lot of my leagues, because it's not just these next 2 weeks on the road against the Giants and then on the road against Carolina, but then they get Las Vegas, the Chargers. That's a bad matchup, but then Dallas and Carolina the rest of the way. So you talk about Vegas, Dallas, Carolina. That's 3 out of 4 matchups in the playoffs that are positive matchups, but you also have these next 3 weeks lined up as well. So they're getting you to the playoffs, and then they're helping you in the playoffs. Sean Tucker in deep enough leagues should also be added and stashed for the exact same reason. And we've seen before, if anything happens to Rachaad White especially, Sean Tucker does step in as, again, a startable asset. Amir Abdullah is one that I've heard a lot in the echo chamber because both Zamir White and Alexander Mattison are now dealing with injuries and may not be available to play. It's a hilarious Robitussin play, but he is a receiving option. Dylan Laube in really, really deep leagues is also worth a stash. I don't believe in playing him. They get Denver and Kansas City next week. So Denver this week, Kansas City next week. Those are really bad matchups. That's why I think Amir Abdullah as a Robitussin player, because there's such bad matchups, and you talk about him having to be a receiving option out of the backfield, I can get my head around that. And then otherwise, it's just full handcuff season. Devin Singletary, Blake Corum, Jalen Wright, like all of these type of guys that were stashed at some point and were maybe dropped. If you have the corresponding running back, I would handcuff my guys in certain situations. I also think really more interesting ones is, again, looking at who's going to get dropped this week. I've been holding Trey Benson in leagues, and even though he's been starting to carve out a role for himself, this is the type of week where if I'm not starting him, I might have to drop him to fill a spot in my lineup. And so if I'm the James Conner owner, I'm definitely keeping an eye on if Trey Benson hits wire. If I'm the Bijan Robinson owner, I'm definitely keeping an eye out if Tyler Algier hits waiver wires. That's going to be a common theme for us in this waiver section. For wide receivers, I'm looking at Green Bay wide receivers. This week, not the greatest against San Fran, but every Green Bay wide receiver basically is worth a dart throw any week, and you hope that it's your guy that week. But the schedule kind of lines up where it's mostly matchups where I think they're going to have to pass a little more. Like you look at, they get San Fran this week, but then they get Miami on the road against Detroit, then at Seattle, then New Orleans, and then at Minnesota. So a lot of those, especially like Minnesota, it falls under the one of the terms again in the echo chamber, pass funnel. One of these teams that's really good on defense against the run, but they let you pass on them. Baltimore Ravens are the other one. You'll hear pass funnel about those teams a lot because it's true. And then New Orleans gives it up. Seattle tends to give it up. A little less when they're at home, but it's still fine. So I think if you can get your hands on a Christian Watson who was dropped, a Romeo Doubs who might get dropped, even a Dontavian Wicks, a Tucker Kraft, those type of guys, in deep enough leagues, I want Green Bay pieces so that I can throw them in as dart throws when I'm having to fill in for bye weeks and bad matchups and injuries and that kind of stuff. Shout out to my guy Raw Boy. Mentioned Darius Slayton. I do think Darius Slayton, not great this week, but you look at, I would still hold him and Wan'Dale Robinson because after this they get Dallas, New Orleans, Baltimore. We talked about that pass funnel on the road against Atlanta, and then Indianapolis, which is a good matchup. And then low-level trade again, guys I think are totally attainable right now. Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard. And I've seen people doing the Nick Westbrook-Akine pickup. I get that. They also just have a really solid matchup kind of the rest of the way. So I thought I wrote it down somewhere, but I guess not. Maybe I missed that one. But if you look at the matchup that they have, it's positive matchup. Bears wide receiver is another one. I've talked about Roma Dunes as a possible stash, especially if he starts to emerge down the stretch. I think Cole Kmet even. I think Keenan is the one that kind of sees the outside. He's on the outside looking in. But again, they get Minnesota and then on the road against Detroit, at San Fran, at Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle. Kind of tough matchups, but a lot of those are, again, the type of pass funnel defenses where it's like you can't really run on them, so you have to throw on them. And if you need a spot start this week for a fill-in, well, I have an actual streaming guy. Devon Bailey, I think, is a great spot start streaming. You need a body, especially in PPR leagues. Against Las Vegas, playing for the Broncos, Devon Bailey, rookie. He's old. He's like 26, but he's a rookie. I would play him. For the tight end spot, a really gross deep one, and we saw it last week, and I think we could see it again this week. Noah Gray, the tight end vulture for the Chiefs, starting to emerge a little bit with the struggles of Travis Kelce, and also them just wanting to use kind of these three tight end sets. I think he's a spot start for this week and even next week. Just pray for the touchdown. He has Carolina and Las Vegas. You got the Schoonmaker spot start against Washington. And if Fergalicious is dropped or if he's out longer, then the rest of the way, Giants, Cincinnati, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, it's not that bad. Pat Freiermuth, generally irrelevant in a Pittsburgh Steelers system with Arthur Smith, but he plays Cincinnati, Cleveland next 2 weeks. So if you really need someone, Theo Johnson might be worth an ad, but probably not anymore because of the situation with the Giants. And then streaming defense, the Bucks and the Commanders. So the Bucks, we've already talked about, obviously the Giants and the Carolina Panthers, and they'll get the Panthers twice through the playoffs. The Commanders, though, even before they go on the bye week for the next 2 weeks, if they're available in your league, they get Dallas and then Tennessee. Tennessee is great. Even though they put up points, they put up turnovers. The Houston Texans, they get Tennessee this week, and then they get Jacksonville next week, and then they go on the bye week. So if you need a 2-week spot start for defense, the Commanders or the Texans. And then again, deeper hold. But if you see the Buffalo Bills get dropped and you are a very high contending team, you're a 1 seed, you're undefeated, or you only got 1 loss. The Bills are a top 5 unit on the season, but they get New England and the Jets at home week 16, 17 for basically semifinals and championship week. So if you see the Buffalo Bills get dropped and you have the ability to stash them, you definitely should. For kickers, because kickers are people too, Austin Seibert for the Washington Commanders should be returning from a hip injury. He would definitely be worth an ad. He's been a top 5 kicker basically all year. Matt Gay for Indianapolis. He gets Detroit and then on the road against New England next week. And Jason Myers for Seattle gets Arizona, New York Jets, and Arizona. So 2 matchups with Arizona for a kicker. That is not bad at all. And also, guys, keep your eyes out on good kickers getting dropped this week. Very easy way to upgrade your team. You have a mediocre kicker or you've just been streaming, getting by on kind of meh guys. Tyler Bass for the Buffalo Bills, Evan McFearless for the Cincinnati Bengals, even Younghoe Koo, and even Blake Grupe for the Younghoe Koo for the Falcons and Blake Grupe for the Saints. All of those guys are on bye week, and because they're kickers, very well could get dropped. Me personally, I'm not dropping a running back or a wide receiver or whatever because I want to hold a good kicker for a week. So if you are in a position where you have the ability to throw that guy on your roster and upgrade your kicker spot, do that. All right. We got some questions here, and then I'm going to get out of here. Where were we? 4KT Owen, what's up, my man? Flex Josh Jacobs, Kareem Hunt, or J.K. Dobbins? That's tough, but I'm going with Kareem Hunt. it's official now. Isaiah Pacheco is not going to play. The matchup against Carolina is too good. I love Josh Jacobs. I think he's the one that I'm struggling with. But for me, I would go with Kareem Hunt in the matchup. I have Philly and Chargers D, but thinking of streaming Washington or Tampa. Who do you like on the 4? I would need to drop Devonta Smith, but I haven't started him all year. Yeah, I would not drop Devonta Smith. If you're not past your trade deadline, try to trade him. He is still a tradable asset. Or just wait, because he's probably going to get put on he's probably going to be IR. Oh, there you go. See? It's already happened. IR Smith. See? That's what I was saying. Don't just drop a guy for no reason. Don't help anybody. But yeah, out of the guys you said, I think Tampa, if Neighbors is out, I was starting to think Tampa was a trap play, because if Neighbors and Tracy are in, maybe DeVito has a little bit of hushpa for his first start, and maybe this turns into a trap game. If Neighbors doesn't play, I'm totally in on Tampa defense, but I still really like Washington defense. So if Neighbors is in, which I don't think he will be, but if somehow he is, I would be out on that. Tampa has Carolina twice. Yeah, they're a very popular stash, but that's why also I am saying, if you can trade for Rachaad White, Bucky Irving right now before our trade deadline, go do it. Niners have said Purdy and Bosa out. We're starting Brandon Allen. Oh, geez, yeah. Scared to start CMC. You still start CMC. Josh Dobbs is a competent enough quarterback, and they'll probably lean a little bit more on the run, so I would still start CMC. Oh, nice. You have Bucky. So, yeah, just be happy that you have him. Sanders is the beast in Miami. Sanders in Miami. I have no idea what you're talking about now. Sanders in Miami. Who the fuck? Okay. Now I'm just tired and high. All right. Let's wrap this show up. I appreciate all of you guys coming by. Oh, right. The kicker. Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, he's a solid start. All right. I'm gonna wrap this show up. I super appreciate you guys coming by. Thank you guys for all the comments. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. I'll be back Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Nice and early. Early bird catches the worm. We will be basically going through our last minute start sit questions, checking in with the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. But until the next time, I will catch all of you guys on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes